Well, good morning, everyone. Would someone please close the back door? Yeah, let's close that one too. Good morning again. I'm Larry Boris at the Gun Club Trilogy here. We're pleased again to have Vince-Perez Mazzola join us from C2Tactical, Director of Training. Today's session relates to non-lethal means of self-defense and different options. But before we get started, as you should all have received my email about the April 2nd outing at C2Tactical. I've got 12 people signed up now. Please let me know as soon as you can if you're interested. We're going to get information. We could either do a package that they set up that has the experience of 3 or 4 different firearms there, or we could do just the lanes. So let me know if you're interested in going, and then we'll determine what the costs are and what the packages would be. But with that, please welcome Vince.
I'll do my best to use this. I'm not really great at microphones, but today we're going to talk about alternate force or alternative force. I'm a big fan of this simply because killing another human being will affect you negatively for the rest of your life. You may think it won't because, you know, we have all these cool guy ideas of being tough dudes, but it will. And so having alternatives other than lethal force, I think is super important. Plus, just legally speaking, when you understand the laws and the application of lethal force or physical force in Arizona, you realize that you can't jump up sometimes. So if, let's say, you and I are in a fist fight, right, and I'm losing, I don't get to shoot you to stop you from beating me up. I'm not allowed to do that legally, because that is not lethal force. I can only meet the same level of force being applied. Right now, if you pick up a brick, start smashing it, coming toward me, that changes the issue. But what people tend to think in Arizona is we have foul language down here, and we have a gun up here, and they think it fills the gap below. It doesn't. So from a legal standpoint, you want to have options. Okay, and alternate force weapons give you that option. Some of them can also be used for lethal means if you're trained that way, and others cannot be. Okay, and it's a lot more flexibility associated with that. Depends on what's happening to you.
Repeat the question, please.
You have to be able to prove. So the question is, if someone's much larger, hurting like a female, there are, again, it's what you can prove in court. If you can prove that you are going to be hurt, and by the way, fear of my life is not a legal defense. You need to get that out of your head. Right? You need to get that out of your head. If I'm slapping you around, right, that's not lethal force. If I start punching you, though, there's a size disparity, force disparity, things like that, you could potentially defend that in court. If I have a better lawyer than you, you're in trouble. That's how it works. Again, I'm not making the laws, folks. I'm just explaining it to you. So there are options for that. By the way, women do have the most flexibility of all of us. As you age, you have more flexibility. Multiple opponents are an issue. If I have a weapon as well, all these different things factor in. There's no black and white answer. I wish there was, there's not. So this is important to have some options for you. And just a simple quote, self-defense is a lifestyle, always prepare, always protected. But I would go the next step and say really personal protection and awareness is the lifestyle. Self-defense is the thing we want to avoid. Self-defense means we're defending. That means we're being assaulted or attacked. My job is to completely avoid that. Right? I don't want to spend 99% of my time learning how to fight the great white shark for the potentiality, very small, that I'll be attacked by a great white shark. I want to learn how to swim. I want to learn how to understand how to maybe not even go to the beach or do something else. Those are the things that are going to keep you safe. Right? Self-defense is the last resort. And you want flexibility in that response, because if you end up saying, okay, all I have is a gun, and you apply that, you apply the hammer to a screwdriver problem, there are going to be legal ramifications, moral ramifications, financial ramifications, all these things. And again, I think it's important that you guys understand that. I have some very good friends from special operations who I've known now for quite a few years, and I may have mentioned this before, but their verbiage has changed significantly. When they were in, we talked about hits, raids, snatches, all this stuff, all the cool, nomenclature that they use. My wife finally got to experience it. We were at dinner, and my wife made a joke about murdering people. And both of them said, "We don't do that anymore." But think about the word, how that changes for them. They literally see their former job as murdering people for the United States, not neutralizing all that other stuff. It has changed, and they're struggling with it. And one of these guys was in the unit, right? And these other guys are all special forces guys, and they're struggling significantly with that. So the best trained people in the world, prepared, willing to go take lives, all this stuff, are now, over years later on, dealing with the psychological and spiritual ramifications of that. And I'm very lucky to be friends with them, but watching them suffer through it, it's tough. And a lot of them don't even own guns. They refuse to carry guns now. So having all options are great. So there's a little bit of a comprehensive course, a little bit, just gonna go through a lot of stuff because I know we have limited time. I'll do my best to cover things. Simple overview, just the knowledge of what options that you have other than lethal force, right? And that's the thing about a gun that's so weird. It has one use only. It spits bullets. That's it. Right, so you've heard this in the past. Well, just shoot a guy in the leg. Okay, so that's using a lethal force option in a non-lethal way, but it's not seen that way by law. So you need to have some other options. The simple one, the easiest one, and probably the most basic, and the tool we have with us at all times is Kung Fu, right, of some sort. Hand-to-hand skills, some basic hand-to-hand fighting skills. However, starting this at 75 is a challenge. It is, right? It's hard to develop these skill sets because a lot of the training that's necessary you need to do when you're really young and quite frankly resilient enough. I'm 57. If I took my shirt off, you'd see scrapes and scratches all over me because my jiu-jitsu instructor beat the living dookie out of me yesterday. Right? To remind me that even though I outweigh him by 70 pounds, he's way better than me. I do this, I train every day, right? But I'm beat up. I've had multiple surgeries, got a couple more just to keep myself going. And I've been doing it for 30 plus years. So it's hard for you to make up that time. However, there are options, but basic striking, punches, kicks. If you've done some boxing as a younger person, great. You have some skill sets, elbows and knees, escapes, how to break away from grabs and holds. That is particularly important for ladies, right? Violence differs by gender. Right? Somebody's going to shove you, push you. I'm going to grab you. That's how most women are assaulted. They're not just punched. Right? Guys tend to be assaulted by a stranger in a public place with a punch or a tackle. Women, it's the #1 place women are assaulted. Yep, by somebody they know. And they're typically grabbed or some type of seizure, so that the person can control you to do something about it. So knowing how to get away from escapes, breaking out of holds and stuff, pretty important. Control techniques. These are simple ways to affect a person's body so they can't hurt you. Right? It's a little bit esoteric, but something as simple as grabbing someone's elbow and moving them because it affects their hips, can buy you some time. Certain systems work that way. Ground fighting, jiu-jitsu, all that stuff, that's what's really not so much that you're going to grab someone, pull them to the ground. And be careful, ladies, if you use some of these self-defense courses that are jiu-jitsu based, they'll tell you the first thing you do is grab the guy and pull him on top of you so that you can be in a controlled position. I'd rather you stand up and run away. That's just me. And so really the ground stuff is what happens if you get put on the ground, right? And if you're how I am, I woke up this morning, I knew it was raining 3 days ago because everything hurt. So getting off the ground is even hard. So that's another thing too. What happens if you are someone who goes to the ground and can't get up? You have to have some skill set out there. Then of course, weapon access. I harp on this all the time. I don't care what you carry on your body as a firearm, edge weapons. I don't care what you're armed with. If you can't get to it, it's irrelevant. It's cosplay, right? It's really that simple. And life doesn't happen at 30 plus feet, right? It happens very close. So if you don't have enough skills to buy the time to get to a weapon, it's pretty useless. And if you can't have the skill set to stop that person from getting your weapon, it becomes their weapon. Something to consider, right? So some basic skills, but these are the hardest ones to develop. I'm just being honest about it. But it's the thing we have with this all the time. Next step would be something like a tactical flashlight. It could be something as small as this, or some of the bigger ones, right? It has a nice bright light, which allows me to what? Search, and also blind. Who said that? You smart people. Yeah, remember flash photography? Back in the day, we've all experienced it. this is a great tool to be able to use to see in dark places to temporarily blind somebody. And if they get close enough, there's a big chunk of metal. This is a tiny one, but most of them are a little bit more substantial. Some of them even have little spikes on the end. This can be a significant impact weapon. Like, yes, you have to have the training. Yes, you have to put in the time to do that. However, it's a great equalizer. So usage, searching, blinding, close quarter impact weapon. The effects, temporary blindness, buys you time, can be used to strike systemic and structural targets. What the hell's that? Well, systemic target is something that's going to affect one of the systems of my body. So let's say I'm close enough, I'm grabbing you, and you pop me in the eyeball, right? That's going to hurt. That's a systemic assault. A structural assault would be smashing me in the clavicle, maybe breaking this. And then this whole quarter of my body ceases to function. So that's a great equalizer. Considerations, of course, are typically legal to carry everywhere except for Japan. I learned that the hard way. Yeah, had to dump a really expensive flashlight in Haneda Airport. So, because literally they had the exact picture of the one I had when I was going into security. I'm like, ah. So I tied my shoe and just threw it underneath the security desk. Found another one. But they're extremely utilitarian. They're pretty much legal to carry anywhere in the United States, and they're a huge benefit. Even if you're carrying a gun or some other type of ballistic defensive weapon, what's the number one thing you have to do in order to justify shooting at somebody or even pointing a gun at somebody? Identify the threat, right? Make sure it's legal to do. How do you do that typically? With light, because so much of this stuff happens at low light. Same with your home. I really recommend that you have a separate flashlight in your offhand, not just the one attached to your gun. Because the tendency then is to use your gun like a flashlight, and that can get you in a lot of legal problems. I'm not saying don't have a flashlight on your gun, but I think about having both. But if you're going to buy one item to start with, I think a tactical flashlight's the way to go. Hypocritical, I don't carry one typically because, quite frankly, can't find one that I like yet. That makes sense, that fits my body style. But I think it's a huge, huge, huge benefit. Chemical agents. I will not be spraying this in class. Okay, something like this that you can carry around, has a little safety, hit the button. So pepper spray, mace, any of these things that affect the respiratory system, people's ability to breathe, people's ability to see. Proper deployment is really important. You have mist sprays and gels. They're very different. A mist can be used, for example, something like this bear spray as an area denial weapon. What does that mean? Someone's breaking into your house, you want to go barricade in your bedroom, but you don't want them to get to you. One of the easiest things you can do is what you do with real bear spray. Bear spray, you don't spray the bear in the face, you spray the area in front of the bear that it has to walk through. So you could go, okay, look, bad guys in the kitchen, they're coming this way. So I'm just going to spray this in the living room. That's going to ruin your stuff, who cares, right? And I'm going to head back to my bedroom and call the cops. Those people now have to go through that barrier of gas. And if you've never been gassed before, and I don't really recommend it, it's not fun. Watch the videos and just trust that it really does work. Now, it doesn't work against everybody, but it can.
How long does it stay in the air?
Depending on the environment. So the only issue with area denial weapon in our part of the world is what?
When?
Air conditioning in your house, right? So all of a sudden it gets filtered back. So my buddy who does this, he has a gas mask on his bedroom. That's how he does it. Same with that. I was out there when it was the last crazy storm. I was out in Mesa doing a thing, and we had a bear spray example. And yeah, there's so much wind. The guy sprayed at me, and all went left. And it sprayed the practitioner. It's crazy. So that's, environment's going to affect it for sure. So we have to be.
Does your own natural gas have an effect?
It can. It can. Not mine. But there's some people. I'll leave that to you and your wife. So mist, sprays, and gels. So a mist is going to cover a whole area. Spray is a little bit more concentrated. The gel literally shoots a single stream that can affect somebody. The key is to get it in their eyes so they can't see. If it gets in their nose and mouth, even with glass, if it drips down, it can have a significant effect on somebody. They do work. Temporary blindness, typically difficulty in breathing and disorientation. Again, it affects the systems of the body, right? And it does that very, very well. Legal considerations, wind direction, and safety are really the biggest issues. And like anything else, can you deploy this thing?
Can I just say one thing too? One thing that my brother was a cop, and basically he has me keep wasp spray,
There you go.
and, you know, it'll shoot like 20 feet.
That has a good stream.
Has a good stream, good solid. I keep it in my car, I keep it in the bedroom, at least, you know, if you need that for something.
And that is a chemical agent. However, the one caveat, it's not designed as a chemical weapon, as non-lethal. So you're spraying poison in someone's face. A good lawyer will go after that. Something to be just to consider. Something to consider, right? But even something like this, right? There's a safety mechanism to it. There's training involved. You can't just buy this and say, I'm gonna be good. You know, you said that you actually used it, you sprayed it, you know how far it's gonna go. So important to know the realities of whatever you're gonna decide to carry and their limitations. Super important. So do train with it. You can get inert trainers that shoot water and different sprays that are a little bit more expensive, but you can do that. Or yeah, buy wasp spray and just practice with it, right? You are, you can get used to knowing how to make it work.
You can buy it at the grocery store.
You can buy it at the grocery store. And there's different ways to deploy the chemical agents, and we'll get to that a little bit more, like pepper guns, sprays, but there's also ones that are like little co-boutons. Pepper ball guns. These things are almost as expensive as real firearms, but if you want to protect yourself and you don't want to potentially end someone's life, fine, spend the money. The AR-15 one down here, I think we have one at Scottsdale, it's $1,500. Okay? Real AR-15 is $1,500 too. But again, depends on your level of, hey, are you cool with shooting another human being? Or I don't want to shoot somebody, but I want to protect myself. And most of these were originally designed to keep critters away. With either impact the balls, because some are just kinetic, and then the other ones have the little balls that shoot out that also have pepper spray and pepper gel and other things in it. Highly effective. Get a lot of people saying, well, those don't work. What do you mean they don't work? Well, you know, you have to put real holes in people. I'm like, you know what? That's like saying every time I punch someone, I have to knock them out. I've been in a bunch of street altercations, not a ton, but enough to know that I didn't have to really injure this person to get them to stop doing something. I just had to injure them and bother them enough to change their mind. Now, if the cool ninjas are coming after you and they're pros, I'm just gonna tell you right now, nothing you can do about it. Just hope they shoot you fast. Because if they're that good, you're not gonna stop it. So most people coming after you are not gonna be pros, right? They're gonna be amateurs and they want easy prey. And what do you, easiest way to get a bad guy away from you? You just not work very hard, just give them enough. You can be the porcupine, you don't have to be the grizzly bear. You can be a porcupine and get them away. So again, back to your own personal desires, you know, are you willing to take another person's life in defense of your own or somebody else's? Right? That's up to you. No one can make that decision, it's individual. Now, would I do that to protect my wife? Probably. Would I do it to protect my dog? Absolutely. I'll be honest. Would I do that to protect myself at my age? Probably not. I'll be honest. Probably wouldn't. I do something else. Someone gets shot after me with a knife or he's got a gun, I'm probably gonna tackle him, just go hands on. If I get shot, I get shot. I don't care. I know that sounds weird. 30 years ago, it would have been totally different. And so there's a lot of soul searching when it comes to what you're gonna use. And I really hope you soul search in a very honest, brutally honest way about yourselves. You're brutally honest. Right? Because if you don't, you fall into that trap of, oh my God, I can do this, or someone messes with me, I can do this. And you don't understand the ramifications of that. You may survive that encounter, but it may haunt you for the rest of your life. Or it may take everything away that you've built, worked hard for. So I think it's important. And you don't have to tell anybody your decision, but I think it's important to really soul search this. So I'd be willing to pay a lot of money for something that could be effective, but that would not necessarily take someone's life. Now, if you look at the idea of your home defense, and remember I said that last time, if home defense out of your terminology is really self-defense in the home, something like a pepper ball gun would be something, again, forward deployed, like that spread. You go down the hallway to see what's going on while the real gun's back in your bedroom. Okay, if there's something going on, I can maybe deploy that pepper ball gun. That doesn't work. I go back and have the real gun. You know, wife's already called the cops, they're on their way. If the person gets that far, you have certain options you can legally defend, but it's really up to you. But some of these things would be very, very effective. Of course, you have to train them because it's the same technology as what? Basically a gun. It's still a gun. It has sights, sight alignment, trigger pull, all that stuff. So it's analogous to what you're already doing. It's just a less lethal or non-lethal option. Impact weapons. You can have your baseball bats or the cops like to use it, right? Batons like this, expandable batons, also take training. It can be very, very effective. Be careful of the training you get though. How I just opened it is where most of the police and security forces will tell you to do. You open it, you give warning, and then you whack the person with it. It's less effective that way. If I actually swing this at you and let it open, it increases the impact force by an insane amount. We actually tested these as part of the group that tested these when they were first invented. And we would take the wine boxes, remember liquor store boxes? Liquor stores have those. You can still, when you're moving as a college kid, you guys remember that? Yeah. And if we had this open, it hit the boxes and crushed them. But if we actually swung this and let it extend while we're hitting the boxes, we cut them in half. It's insane. So actually, that's what they did with the police officer. Said, no, you have to deploy it first, give verbal warnings, then hit it first. But from a self-defense standpoint, you know, if it's immediate, you may want to look at something different. But this also takes a lot of training. Okay. Also, those systems for police and military, in particular, police and law enforcement, tell you to hit large muscle groups. You tell me I'm gonna hit myself kind of hard. Is it taking me down? It's not. Now, if I tap myself that same way in the kneecap, how do you think that would work? Oh yeah, right. So they're going to tell you to go after the muscle groups because it causes the least amount of damage. Because again, they have legal aspects. But if I don't respond to that, not a problem. But structural targets can shut a lot of people down, even if they're adrenalized and drugged. But it does take training. They come in all sorts of different things. You have expandable batons, you have automatic batons, you have walking sticks, baseball bats. I can't wait till I can pull off a cane. Shoot, yeah, cool. I'm armed at all times, right? I'm very happy to do that. And there are literally cane programs, a group called Cane Masters, I believe it is. I know it's kind of a hokey name, but they make really good canes that are specifically designed for self-defense and training. Back to the reality though, it takes a lot of time. It takes training. You have to hit stuff, you've got to train with it constantly. It is a martial art of sorts. The good part about these things, again, you can target limbs, structural targets, and pressure points as well, so you can vary the amount of damage you do. There are control methods. You can grab somebody and actually get them into control. You can choke people with these things. And of course, legal uses, they vary by jurisdiction, but a lot of places allow them. They're pretty simple. And if you just have an expedient weapon, you know, around, you have one right in front of you. Right? Anybody with a water bottle, anybody with a cell phone. So what I like about some of the training, and that's my background, like edge weapons and impact weapons and hand-to-hand, anything with mass can be used as an impact weapon. Anything with an edge, doesn't matter what it is, can be used to cut. Anything with a point can be used to stab. So some of the kids at C2, because they're all ninja out all the time, they're looking at me like, why don't you carry weapons? I'm like, I don't need to, they're everywhere. See that? See the ballpoint pen right there? I'm just gonna grab it and stick it in your face. You know, I'm like, what? Yeah, you know, or you know, I got my cane or whatever they have. And that's what I like about some of the training and I guess weapon combatives, so Filipino martial arts, things like that. It gets you into that mindset that anything's a weapon. Your guys' hats are, I beat the somebody, I almost went the wrong way there. I beat the dookie out of somebody with a hat once, literally a baseball hat. He said I couldn't. I said, all right, clear your gun. A friend of mine was my firearms instructor because he was always angry that I wasn't carrying a gun. I said, get to it. And he never could get to it. We did round after round after round. He could never get to his gun. And I just used his hat against him. So that kind of stuff gives you flexibility. I don't have to have a specific weapon all the time, right? Even if you travel, you go someplace that's non-permissive. Okay, great. I want something. Grab a magazine, buy a magazine at a newsstand, roll it up. You have an impact weapon. Take part of the rod in the hotel, break it, put it in that thing. Now you have a stick. Buy a Coca-Cola. You have food, and if you got an impact weapon, if it cracks, you have a stabbing or cutting weapon. So it's not a specific weapon, but I can use it as such. And it gives you a lot of flexibility. Your glasses, all sorts of stuff. So I like this as a base for alt force, and it's fun to do. Filipino martial arts in particular have a bunch of drills called sinawali. That's the general term in Tagalog, I think it is. And it's the double stick drills. And it's a lot of patty cake at 150 miles an hour. Does a whole bunch of things though. Increases your hand-eye coordination, increases your visual acuity if you start to learn how to react to it. It slows everything else down because when the tip of the stick's moving 150 miles an hour, a punch, it looks like it's going through molasses. And there's a thing that if anybody here's had a stroke or had to recover from that called bimanual bilateral coordination training. That has a lot of data associated with it. So I have my right hand moving here. The left side of my brain is controlling that. But once this right hand moves across the hemisphere of my body to this side, my other side of my brain has to connect. So there's communication between the corpus callosum. So it increases dendritic branching and all sorts of other stuff. So personally, I would love to see every single one of you get into that for your own personal neurological health and your own dexterity and hand health. One of the reasons I keep up with the special operations guys, sometimes when they did stuff with them, they couldn't believe it. They would not shoot me speed-wise, but I could reload, do all sorts of stuff faster than them. They said, how do you do that? And I said, oh, the sticks. And I actually showed them the stuff, and that's what I ended up doing, is teaching this protective unit, showing a bunch of special operations guys the sticks, not for fighting, but to develop coordination and all these other things, develop overspeed training. Really worth its weight in gold, and it's really fun to do, quite frankly. You do it boom noodles, for God's sakes, right? It's a blast. Anyway, so I'm overly pontificating. Conductive electrical weapons. Excuse me. So this gets kind of funky. So Taser was actually a brand name of a single product. I think it was Thomas A. Seward or something like that. I forgot his actual name. Electronic rifle. And it was originally a round, a shotgun round, and they would shoot it and had its own energy source, and it would hit things and zap them, they go down, and they could work on it. It was originally purchased by the Alaska Game and Fish. They wanted to do research on animals. Problem is, they blow dart a caribou or whatever, it'd go down, and it would take hours for it to recover from the study, and guess what? It'd be food, right? So they wanted something, put something down they could do their studies on and then leave. So they got this, they bought this first, and then some guy tried to use it on a polar bear, things did not go well, and they got rid of it. So yeah, so then this guy kept running around saying, okay, how do I sell my product? He went to the military, and they said, yeah, that's really cool, but if I shoot the person, then what? They go, oh, then you have to take them into custody and all this, we don't want that. It finally got down to police officers, and I remember being a kid seeing these things first come out. And it took a long time for them really to get the technology down, but it works very well. So how a taser works, and by the way, that's very different than a stun gun. Where people get in trouble is a stun gun does not shoot anything. It's a contact weapon. This crazy flashlight here is called a strike light. It has 3 settings, red, about 150 lumens, 300 lumens, blinding wise. And then if I can do that too. In order to make it work pain-wise, I have to touch the person. But for critters and stuff, boy, pretty much everything on the planet knows to stay away from that noise. And this thing is hefty enough that I could use it as an impact weapon, and it actually has the little spikies on the front. So this is what I use when I walk my dogs. It's a good example of it. So this is a stun gun. A taser is different. Taser actually shoots 2 probes out. When those probes hit, let's say it hits me in the chest and one in the leg, and that's ideal to have a lot of probes spread, it then sends an electrical current whose amplitude is very low, so it can't hurt the person, but whose frequency affects the muscles in between these 2 points and starts flexing them 16 times a second. So basically it's giving a person a full body cramp between those 2 probes, and that's why they go down. Only negative of a taser, I think it's amazing technology, for me to you is the ideal distance. From me to that post, I'm gonna lose the probe spread and be ineffective. So that's the only negative, but it does work. So it's 7 feet is ideal, 15 feet is max for the civilian ones, and 21 feet plus is when it starts falling apart. They have a couple of the models, I believe it's the Bolt 2, that you can buy a Bluetooth setting with it. The minute you pull the trigger, it calls the cops, and the cops come right to where that incident occurred. So another thing to use, interestingly, is maybe a forward position. I'm gonna go out there, bad guys, you know, they have sledgehammers and they're breaking up my kitchen. Remember, can't use physical force or lethal force to defend property, but I can threaten certain things, physical force, which taser is technically under. And I can point a taser at somebody without being lethal force threatening and intimidating, potentially. I hit the one guy, he goes down, hit the other guy, it doesn't work. I can run back to my spot, and the cops are already called, which is kind of neat. Really good technology. We actually have a lady who used to work for Taser, Sarah Morrell, who's now in charge of our 338 club. If you guys come out, I'll make sure you meet her. Her claim to fame She has tased over 3,000 people and got paid to do it. First as a law enforcement officer, and she even said, she was like, look, I'm a little lady, I'm a DT instructor. She goes, I never went hands-on. Some guy got in my face, I'm like, oh, taser, just tased everybody. She goes, I tased everybody. That was her deal, and it worked very well for her because remember the situation and context is so important. The guy's getting into a girl's face, he's trying to intimidate her, so she just immediately tased the person. There was no fight going on. It was pre-fight. And because of taser being that type of technology, pepper spray the same thing. And I carry pepper spray a lot when I'm out with my dogs because if somebody gets in my face, which has happened recently, oddly enough, I'm just gonna pepper spray and just, I'll deal with those issues. Instead of going hands-on or getting in a fight and definitely avoiding firearms as much as I can, but things like that work. The only negative of potentially of a taser is if a person is in this very specific situation. So there are no direct deaths recorded, even though millions of applications have been used for this product. But there's been indirect deaths. One example, guy got tased, he was on a second-story building, seized up, fell off the building. Another guy got tased running away, locked up, landed, and broke his neck or something like that. And the most recent one was, I think, down in either Queen Creek, Mesa, someplace, not exactly where, guy was being fingerprinted and was being very combative, so they left the room for a while. When they left the room, he had covered himself in hand sanitizer. So when they came back in and tased him, he ignited. Yeah, there's actually video of it. Because sadly, tasers, electric, the same stuff, now it's electric bolt, right? A little zapper, it can't ignite them. So hairspray, or if you've used, let's say you use pepper spray first, and the propellant in that pepper spray is flammable, and then you use it, apply a taser, you have to be very careful about that. But it's really good technology, works really well. And I'm pretty sure the last time we saw the map, there's like 4 states that don't allow you to have it in our entire place. Sorry.
No. Just question. So once you use it, does it automatically come back in, or
It
do you
does
have
not.
to rewind it?
It is not. So that's the only negative. You have a single cartridge for the civilian model. Some of the security and law enforcement models, which are much more expensive, have 2 cartridges. So you use it once, that would be a training issue, right? That didn't work. How do I reload quickly and get to the next one? We had the new head CEO of civilian products for Axon. Axon's a company that owns Taser. Sadly, they're making all their money off of dash cam and badge cam content. So they've really let this side of the world go. We saw some of their new technology, and I was the only one in the room said this won't work. Don't do it. You're going down a completely wrong road here. He's like, no, we are. And I really are. You're turning it into a firearm, which this is not. So legal issues occur. They're taking away the connection, the wires. And if anybody works for Axon, please don't tell them I'm violating my NDA. Not completely, but a little bit. And the wires, they take them away. Problem is there's no mandatory probe spread. So now you have to make the probe spread. That's crazy. That's like saying shoot someone in the chest, then shoot them in the leg. It's not going to work. So he was at C2, and I felt bad for him because I assaulted him with my idea. And I said, this is what I want you to build for me. And I will quit my job, and I will do this full time for you. I want you to make a little double barrel shotgun with 2 cartridges that shoot a minimum of 21 feet. I want that distance. Big, give me a laser on it, give me a flashlight. I want it hefty enough that if it doesn't work, I use it as a flood. I said, I will have that for my self-defense in my house. And the poor guy, this Indian guy, he's sitting there on his phone, and I was getting pretty angry about it. And I'm like, all right, I'm done. He goes, no, I'm taking notes. Tell me more. So hopefully we'll see something like that if they get it. But it makes sense because that's the negative. This distance, what if it doesn't work? You're so close, you're going to close in on me no matter what. So we want more distance, but it does really, really work. And yeah, if you buy one of these, you probably wouldn't do it. I guarantee every guy in here, who bought one of these, what are you going to do?
Throw it.
You're going to use it on yourself. You are, right? One beer in, not even that, bourbon, or just messing around, and you're going to be like, holy crap, that really works. It's insanely painful, right? But it's one of those things. All right, next one, edge weapons. These are nasty, right? Knives. Okay, knives. We invented guns to shoot people with knives, literally. That's why guns were invented. Somebody walked up and stabbed me, what the hell? So I go over there. He puts his knife on a stick and turns it into a spear. Seriously? So I go further and he throws it at me. I'm like, you've got to be kidding. So I go 100 yards away. And what does he do? He shrinks his spear down, puts some arrows on it, and stabs me at 200 yards away with his arrow. So I go to 300 yards and go, can I throw a rock farther than he could throw a knife? And we invented guns. That's literally why they invented interpersonal warfare, right? To increase the distance, effective distance that knives always have. Within a day of training, if you have some basic abilities, anybody here play pickleball? Thank God. If you play pickleball, you have some hand-eye coordination or some other sports. I could train you in one day with a knife that a trained guy could come after you, they wouldn't stand a chance. They're that effective. They're also gross. Right? It's not easy to cut or stab somebody or something or whatever. It's really tough. It's not like in the movies either, right? People keep going. But they're insanely effective, especially at close range. Right? So it's something to consider. There's knives that are non-ferrous. There's folding knives, straight edge knives. I'm a fan of the folding ones because it gives you an option with training to use it also as an impact weapon first, and then you can open it. The cool guy thing now, the shiv works, all those dudes running around with these pickers, great, but the picker can only be used for one thing, stabbing and cutting, and so it gives you less flexibility, and juries may look at that differently than, hey, I have this utility knife that I used to cut boxes with, that I then pressed into service in a self-defense capacity versus, yeah, I'm walking around with a tiny short sword ready for someone to get me, little different, but again, highly, highly, highly effective for ladies in particular. You're gonna be grabbing close quarters. Someone bigger, stronger than you, you're not gonna fight your way out very well, but you can cut your way out very, 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 very effectively. But again, it takes a certain level of training, intestinal fortitude, and know that no matter what you do, if you apply it, you're gonna probably cripple somebody at minimum, even though sometimes that can be fixed. Maybe disfigure somebody at maximum control. But there's gradations in there. So I'll give you an example. I'm being strangled. I'm up against this wall. I can do nothing because the guy's ginormous. I get my knife out. Option one, which a lot of knife training people will tell you to do, is I'm going to cut his throat. Really gross, really nasty. I still die though, because it takes 30 seconds for him to bleed out. So, okay, not very effective. Next level, okay, don't cut him in the throat, stab in the eyeball. Okay, great. What if he's adrenalized or on drugs? It may not stop him. Strangling me, I'll reach up and I just put my knife right here against his hands and I go like this. And I cut the tendons in that hand. What happens to that hand? It stops working. So structural targets work very, very quickly to stop parts of the body. And that, if you have training and comply those things properly, you can shut a person down in 3 cuts. Done. They can do nothing. They can't even chase you if you do it right. Right, because you hit their hands, their face, and cut their tendon, their Achilles tendon, or their patellar tendon, you run away and you're good. Doesn't seem like much, but it's that effective, which is why we're terrified of knives. Plus, there's a huge psychological factor. So on the converse side, you're being assaulted with an edge weapon. That's where most people freak out. Because you're thinking of disfigurement, pain, things like that, versus having a gun pointed at you. Unless it's a shotgun. Those things go to hell out of me. So use in self-defense, definitely a last resort option, but highly, highly, highly effective. Retention's a big issue, deployment's a big issue, and actually applying it. Legal and ethical considerations, understand force of escalation and where it fits in there, how you can defend it. Again, this is my knife, by the way, this is what I carry every day. I don't carry guns. And I carry it for this, done this way for a very specific reason. I'm going to be able to use it as an impact weapon, some other ways, and then say I made a decision to open it and cut or stab somebody. I like that. But there are big psychological ramifications, right? Killing anything with a knife is gnarly. It just is. And hurting something with a knife is gnarly. So you have to have part of that training in your head. Less lethal ammo. This is a cool option. I think we discussed this before than the last time. Because I'm almost, what's my timeline? Okay, I'm actually ahead of schedule for the first time. Less lethal ammo can be shot out of shotguns. So you have a platform, probably the most effective like self-defense platform on the planet, depending on what you're shooting out of it, that's a shotgun, that can also let you shoot things that are less lethal. I like that. Right? That's the thing, that's what I have. Right? I have a shotgun with less lethal rounds in it, and I have lethal rounds on the side. And I make that decision. So there's beanbag rounds, rubber buckshot rounds, rock salt, and even impact projectiles like this. These are kinetic rounds that shoot little missiles that thump the guy in the chest. One of my instructors works for the federal prisons. He just got back into it, and they use all these things because they're not allowed to use real guns, except for the guards on the towers. And I asked them, "You been shot with those?" "Yep." "Do they work?" "Yep." Okay, kind of good to know, right? How they use them are very interesting, though. You have to look into that. They'll skip them off the ground. So they'll shoot at somebody, skip them off the ground because they want the impact to be here, right? I said, "What happens if you screw up and shoot someone here?" He goes, "Oh, you kill them." So even this, you have a non-lethal round, a less lethal round, could, depending on what target choice, be used also in a lethal method or potentially lethal method. Some issues, beanbag rounds. Phoenix PD just got rid of all of them about a year ago. Sadly, they never used them. And when they got sat there in the hot sun, they turned into solid projectiles. And when they shot somebody recently, it either went in their chest and out their arm, or in their arm and out their chest. Didn't go into the body, but penetrated the skin, and they had big issues, so they got rid of them all. Now they're moved to the 40mm baton rounds, which are highly effective for less lethal. And there are baton rounds here too. There's all sorts of stuff. If you have a non-lethal shotgun, like we usually set it up over there, have a specific color so you know what it looks like, so you don't mix the two up if you have both. Or your handgun's the lethal issue and the shotgun's non-lethal. There's different ways to do it. Of course, it takes a dedicated operator, especially with a pump shotgun, which I do recommend versus a semi-auto, because some of the semi-autos will not cycle because there's less charge going on, less kinetic energy. But from a legal standpoint, another thing I like about shotguns is you're almost forced, sorry, there's gonna be a pun here, but not really intended, but it is, forced to use less force, right? Let's say I use double out buck. I'm going for bear, right? In one trigger pull, there's gonna be 9, basically 38 caliber pellets hitting that individual in one trigger pull. In order for me to accomplish that with my rifle or handgun, I need to shoot a whole bunch. So in a legal standpoint, they go, "How many times did you shoot the guy?" "Once." "Oh, sounds like a judicious use of force." Now, if they know about shotguns on the jury, they know you hit them with a howitzer, okay? But they don't know, it sounds a little, "Oh, wow, you didn't shoot a bunch." And then with a pump, you're going to be forced to do a manipulation, so it buys you thinking time. I know it sounds weird, but I do that to myself. I'm sadly almost too well trained in certain areas, and when it clicks on, I just go. That's not good as a civilian.
Are they pretty much 12 gauge?
Most of the non-lethal are 12 gauges, but there are some 20 gauge. You'd have to research that. I'm lucky, I live in an all brick house, so I'm researching frangible ammunition, frangible buckshot, things like that, just for my own safety. What I can tell you about shotguns, based on a couple people I know who used them in real life back in the day, and even John Correa, the active self-protection guy, which by the way, he's going to be at C2 giving a free legal use of force seminar, I believe on April 15th. You might want to check your calendars for that. But even John is a big fan of these in certain ways. And I asked him, I said, you watched all these videos. You see a lot of shotgun stuff? He goes, "Nah, maybe about 100 or so." I said, "Okay, but what's the one thing you've noticed?" He goes, "Oh, they never have to shoot more than once, no matter what's coming out of it." Birdshot, buckshot, rock salt, the amount of kinetic energy and the amount of just overwhelming force that hits this person at one time, he says, tends to stop their behavior. And again, isn't that the point in a self-defense situation? It's not to kill somebody, it's to stop the threat, stop their behavior. Way back in the day, a lot of people don't know this, SEAL Team 6, when it first started, the guys on the platforms used wheel guns and the guys for CQB used shotguns. I know one of the founders, a guy named Duke Leonard, and I said, "Why'd you use shotguns?" He said, "We don't have to shoot twice." They were that effective. And then because of training and issues and cost and quite frankly, collateral damage, because you have to have a specific environment to use that effectively, it moved away from that. They didn't use it anymore. But for civilians, I find it very interesting. And again, if you want to have something that can do both, lethal and non-lethal, this is really the only option you have. We don't have phasers or stun and kill yet, right? If you don't have those yet. In your handgun, quite frankly, even though we have the euphemisms of shoot to stop the threat, you're perforating somebody's upper thoracic cavity or face or certain body parts. It's highly probable it would lead to their demise. There's some flexibility in it, and I think some defensibility in court, right? Depending on how you do it. Though they are definitely harder to shoot, definitely harder to work with, but something to think about. Again, this is what I've changing my life too, personally. So some conclusions here and some next steps. Choose your technology based on your needs, what you're comfortable with, what you're capable of applying, right? Hey, if you've been doing Kung Fu your whole life, great, do some more Kung Fu, just get yourself tuned up. If you haven't been doing Kung Fu your whole life, starting now, I'm not sure how that's gonna help you, but could you start baton or knife training at this age? Absolutely, 100%. It will help your health, everything else, and give you something, a skill set that you can potentially use in the worst extreme. If you're already doing firearms, things like a taser, the gun part, pepper balls, kinetic balls, or the non-lethal shotgun, you're already doing that training, so it's overlapping on an existing skill set. Right? Me going from acoustic guitar to electric guitar is a smaller leap than going from electric guitar or acoustic guitar to trumpet. Right? So it's kind of that same thing. You have something, an analogous skill set, analogous training and knowledge that you can apply a lot faster than you could develop grabbing some of these other technologies. Ongoing practice is always the key, folks. I wish every day. So I'm gonna out C2 a little bit here. I guess I should say I'm not gonna out C2. I'm gonna out the people who are gonna shoot that. I cannot walk onto our range and not have my head explode. What people consider okay and competent and good in shooting is not. It's not. And as the instructor, head guy, it's hard for me to walk by people, especially the ones who tell you, oh, I've been shooting for 40 years. And I'm like, and you've been shooting that badly for 40 years? How can you tolerate that of yourself? Part of it is gun culture has never set a true standard. They haven't told you what good is. They haven't told you what good enough is, right? Especially in a self-defense environment. So I'll give you this. This is what I use for my students. Next time you're at the range, put your target out 15 feet, closer than 21, right? Because we know about those ranges. And give me a nice simple tempo drill. Bam, 1 does. Bam, 2 does. Bam, 3 does. Do 5 rounds. If they're not all touching or close to touching, you don't know how to shoot yet. I mean that. Now if I speed up and go bam 1, bam 2, bam 3, okay, give me fist size, but they still shouldn't be more than fist size. If I go bam, 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 it should be more than this. If you cannot do that, you don't know how to shoot yet, or you're shooting the wrong gun. What are you talking about? You're talking about advanced stuff. No. That's basics. We get people shooting a playing card on edge in our second class, which is where we teach you to shoot. We get virtually everyone doing that. And not just at 5 feet, 25 feet, 50 feet, 60 feet. We push marksmanship first, right? Like all these people say, oh, I do self-defense shooting, so I just have to shoot fast. No, you have to shoot accurately. Shot placements, more important than shot volume. That's why carrying a 22, people say it's ridiculous. I have no problem carrying a 22. Because I know I can put 5 rounds right here as fast as I can pull the trigger all day long. Because of my skill set, not about the gun I carry or anything else. So all of this is really about skills, training, and the like. Enjoy the process though. Have some fun. Say, okay, I'm gonna take that challenge. I want to be able to do that. Cool, go to the range, do your thing, get to that local skill set, and then have some sustainment training. It works the same with the knife though. You want to do knife stuff, learn the basic patterns, cool, how fast can I do it? Learn some Kung Fu, learn baton, pepper spray. Just get good at the item you're using and the skill set you're gonna apply. That is more important than anything you buy, guys. It's really hard sometimes to get people to that. You keep nodding, so what's your background? Yeah. Forces. There you go. Okay. How do you think he is out in the woods? How do you think he got that way? Spending a lot of time out there, right? It's like anything else. We tend to look at the gun as the easy way out. It's not. It's just a different technology. Look at it like a samurai sword or archery or anything like that. Get proper training, develop the basic skill set. Your first 1,000 rounds are the most important because that's when you establish that consistency. And then you're going to take another 9,000 rounds to master that. But do you have to be a master at it? Not really. You just have to be competent. So looking at 2,000 to 3,000 rounds of high quality, good training, just for the marksmanship part. Then you talk about tactics and all those other things. Because all this stuff, guys, doesn't matter. Your job is to never be in a self-defense situation ever. That's the job. People ask me all the time, they go, you train all the time, you do Muay Thai, kickboxing, how many fights you been in? I'm like, 2. I mean, other than stepping in the ring or getting on the mat, they go, well, I just avoid it. I've lived in 3 other countries, been to 17 other countries, been all over the place, some really dangerous places. I just maneuver my way through the jungle and get out. And my job's not to fight, my job's to survive. You know, surviving means avoiding, that's the best way to do it. If you're stuck in it and surviving means running away, that's the next best way to do it. Only in the gravest extreme do you need to fight back, or you should fight back. And by the way, capitulation is a decision, and that's okay if you're good with it. I was with an SAS soldier in Spain, and the guy says, give me your wallet. The guy goes, here you go. I'm like, what the? He's like, dude, I already get in the fight. Guy's got a knife. Give me my money. Move on. Well, the highest trained guys on the planet at the time was like, yeah, it's not about the fight. We've made this weird macho culture around all this self-defense stuff. Your job is to avoid it at all costs. Now, I would recommend a couple people, if you don't mind me saying. There's a guy named Steve Tarani. So if you look at his website, stevetarani.com, Tarani. Steve was an agent, a protective agent for many, many years. And he has a book, a program called Prefense. And it's basically how do we apply bodyguard awareness to our everyday lives so that we don't get into the events. Because in his world, he'll say this, if we go to guns, we fail. And so we want you to have those abilities. And just for fun, you'll see me getting beat up on his website. I've known Steve forever. But that's really the key, right? Is not to get in one of these issues, not to attract the attention, not to get in a bad spot. But I will tell you this, if you have some skills, abilities, and maybe a gadget or two, there's enough of confidence projection. We don't want to go over the top, just enough to the bad guy that he'll choose somebody else. I mean, you said that, you know, but I look at you, you're not a person I want to assault. You look relatively fit for your age, and you're definitely aware. Your body positioning tells me you're ready to move. Why would I choose you?
Trust me, don't mess with me.
Yeah, it's one of those things, right? My wife just had shoulder surgery. But she's a very fit-looking woman, and she's very attractive. So she gets attention, but the predators are like, you look like you might fight back. Remember, they want easy prey, guys. They want the simple stuff. They want someone who's not going to do anything. So the number one is to be camouflaged, right? Blend in, do your thing, ideally. And the next one is to run away. So be the rabbit. Be a porcupine if you can't be a rabbit, but you don't have to be a grizzly bear too. There's no need to be at the same level of these people. But it does help to have some skill set. People ask, I said, one of the reasons I think I've never been in a fight, or very few, is my one Delta buddy goes, it's the way you look and smile. I go, what? He goes, yeah, you give me that smile, like, yeah, let's do it. Sure, I'm good. I go, oh, okay, cool. I didn't know I had that. I just, had no idea. But that's another thing. You can never choose how somebody perceives you. Think about that, right? So sometimes a lot of these guys wearing their cool jackets and grunt style stuff and protected by Glock, that could attract some people, but also could do the opposite. I drive all the time with my wife. I'm like, there's a gun, there's a gun, there's a gun. She goes, what do you know? I go, I'm deciding where I'm going to get the gun if I need it. How do you know? I look at their stickers. And I assume if they're broadcasting that, they don't have any skill set. They're trying to scare me with the sticker. So I'll just hide underneath that big lifted truck with a brick. If I need stuff, I'll take it. Because I have the skills. That seems a little creepy. I know that, but it's important. So the mindset is there. So if you're going to decide I need to have something, dedicate yourself to it. Pick one thing, but make it comfortable and quite frankly, make it fun. I shoot for fun. I just love having that skill set. I do the jiu-jitsu for fun. I do Muay Thai for fun. I do all the crazy stuff I do for fun now because I've learned to avoid stuff. But there is a little bit of that, hey, if it happens, hey, I should be all right. Or better than average. And that's, by the way, the reality of it. I can have all the training in the world. If I go first, you're in a lot of trouble. But if I don't go first and you go first, I'm just like anybody else. Now, I may have a higher percentage chance because I've been punched in the face before. And it's not a big deal to me unless you break something. So I'll respond. But let's say you hit me really well. I'm just like anyone else. I go to the ground and fall asleep. And I have to wake up in the hospital. And that's why even if you're trained, even if you're a badass or whatever you want to call it, really the goal is to avoid getting in these confrontations. So awareness skills, de-escalation skills, evasion skills, all this stuff. And you're way more probably in a fist fight, most guys in a gunfight. And other things, our health issues. I'm all beat up. I've had like 7 surgeries now. I got 2 more on the books because I'm just beat up. How do you manage that as we age? Because I'm on the other side of the curve too, folks. I'm 57, right? I'm on the other side of the curve. And I figure by the time I'm 77, no matter what, I'm food, right? That's just how I know I'm gonna be, because I'll be so beat up, I won't do anything else. So the gun's gonna be for me, just in case if I'm gonna go down for fun. Where are you in that gradation? So enjoy the process. But the cool thing is about the awareness skills and avoidance skills is you can do this day one. You don't have to take a lot of time. Thanks for your attention. I hope that helps.